Well, to be entitled to seek recoupment of some legal fees, Blake Lively relied on a well-intentioned piece of legislation designed to stop the rich and powerful from being able to ruin their accusers' lives for the very act of mustering the courage to stand up for themselves. The woman who authored the legislation that gave Blake the screen door to hide behind reacts to the final ruling. It's Blake Baldoni overtime. Damn it. Shit, God darn it. Hot Mics with Billy Bush. Here we go.
Oh my gosh, it's me doing me, right?
Right as sharp. That's insane. Billy Bush. What a touch.
Another compliment. There she is. Okie dokie. Welcome to Hot Mics. Thanks for joining us here. Please hit the like, subscribe, and the notification bell. We want you engaged in the family. We are growing and having a good time. Well, Blake Lively needs more time after the ruling on Friday that she is entitled to recover attorney's fees and litigation costs pertaining to California Civil Code 47-1, a strict interpretation of that law. Friday's ruling stipulated that in regards to Section 47-1, the statute ensures that if a plaintiff invokes California law to bring a defamation claim against a defendant for making statements regarding sexual assault, harassment, or discrimination, and the defendant succeeds in dismissing the claim, the plaintiff must pay the defendant's legal fees and costs unless it turns out that the statements were made with malice. Well, Judge Lewis Lyman, exhaustingly presiding over Lively and Baldoni, he concluded that Blake made statements covered by Section 47-1. She prevailed on her defense, and there was no evidence of malice in the record. So she's entitled to attorney's fees under the statute. Keep in mind, she's not entitled to anything having to do with compensatory, punitive, or treble damages, anything like that. These are administrative fees, basically. So to collect those fees, Judge Lyman issued a scheduling order. And he said that Blake is to submit documentation supporting the amounts and accounting of what she's owed by next Monday, January 22nd. And then he said Baldoni will have a week to respond, so by the 29th. But Blake asked for an extension. Her request to Judge Lyman was at least 7 days, please, but really we'd prefer up to another 30 days to get back to you. You can already see the creative accounting she's going to try and put forward here. We need 30 days to basically recoup as much of our legal fees from all the crap we tried to accuse him of, like sexual harassment and misconduct and everything else. We're going to try to tuck it all into the 47-1, the fees that she used defending herself against the lawsuit that got, a countersuit that got dismissed. Anyway, she wants all that time, saying that she's got a number of conflicting personal and professional obligations, including international travel. Oh, my God, we've got to get to that beautiful chateau we leased in Saint-Tropez. Maybe extend that international getaway by about 2 years. Might be a good move. We welcome back Victoria Burke right now, the author of the legislation that became California Civil Code 47-1. Her intention was to protect survivors of sexual assault, harassment, and discrimination from retaliatory lawsuits after they spoke about their experiences. She was concerned that survivors were being silenced by the threat of an expensive libel litigation. Victoria, so good to see you again. Hello
nice
there.
To see you, Billy.
Good to see you. So Judge Lyman,
we're back.
Yeah, you're back. But we gotta speak about what this means and where it goes. The judge ruled that Blake is entitled to reclaim fees directly related to her defense against Justin's big defamation suit that he sort of his countersuit, ultimately tossed by Judge Lyman and left unappealed by Justin. But what is your reaction to the ruling?
I was surprised. I thought he would need to have, it go to trial to see if malice actually existed or not. So I was surprised that he handled it almost like it was a pretrial motion, like it was in an anti-SLAPP claim of a defense of anti-SLAPP, which is handled in a pretrial motion because when we put the law in California, we put it in defamation section, which is a trial motion section. So usually there has to be, hear what the facts are, witnesses, different evidence presented more than just what you put in the pleadings in
So
pretrial
I
motions
mean,
and
he
stuff. So I
assumed
was
that there's no
surprised.
malice. He said there's no malice here, but he decided that on his own. That he said he gave her by saying this came from a good place, from her, in her, believed that maybe that she believed that these were real experiences, and so they didn't go any further. Do you feel like the judge just wanted out of this whole thing, and was that vindication for Blake beyond what she's gonna, claim as? Money back is as some kind of win?
Well, I thought it was very surprising because how do you have it like attorney fees but not actual damages? So if you are saying there's no malice, wouldn't they go together? So it's kind of like he wanted to do a little bit for you and a little bit for you, and like maybe he's confused about how the law was presented, and he just is like, okay, and go see if I could split the baby here and figure out something because I would have presumed you need to hear the facts to see if there was malice there to at least have a more presentation. Because if it was in anti-SLAPP, that's different. Anti-SLAPP literally dismisses it based on like a face of pretrial. And so you have to put it all in everything that you're like putting forth pretrial. Whereas if you had thought it was going to like actual trial and be heard as a defense, you might have put more in ahead of time. You might have presented it differently. Like Baldoni's attorneys might have presented it differently if they knew it wasn't going to be heard on the facts.
Right. I mean, look, if Blake Lively, in my opinion, if she was, deeply outraged and stood behind all of her claims, she would have said, we're absolutely going to trial. Let's do this. She is the one, her legal team initiated, settlement hearings in the final hour right before court. I think she played chicken, all the way up till the end. And then she pushed rather frantically. I remember it was a Friday afternoon, phone call from her lawyers going, we got to settle, we got to settle. And, Friedman and his team were like, okay, here we go. You don't do that, if you firmly believe, and especially with allegations as serious as these and ones that have, great tentacles to them. They affect other people in the future. Do you think Judge Lyman's splitting of the baby here was basically like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. I'm gonna say, fine, you did this, without malice, and therefore, you'll be able to recoup these fees. But really, it's for, the sanctity of the law, so that other people in the future, because it's one of the first testings of this, the first major testing of your piece of litigation, that this is for, future people, so the whole thing doesn't get ruined. Do you see any positive thing in that?
I can see the positive is that, he believed in a quote unquote survivor coming forward. And, if you cannot show whatever he was looking at, if he didn't see a demonstration of malice, then he felt according to the law, if there's no malice and it was based on good faith, like that would be, let's say, she came forward with good faith and she literally thought what she was saying was sexual harassment. But like he found it didn't add up to that, but she was confused. She thought this stuff was like, I don't like it. What's going on? That's sexual harassment. But like she came from a good place. That would have to be the judge's thought process on that, and that he couldn't see any laid out claims of like malice, of like she had other motivations behind it. So if he saw it like that, I could understand his thinking, but it doesn't go with no actual like damages then because one would go with the other. So it's kind of like, well, wait, if you thought this, then shouldn't that also go with the same? Because they kind of go hand in hand. So I was a little bit confused how that came down, but I feel that maybe he wanted to protect the integrity of what he felt the bill was about without having to go through a whole like separate trial to hear it. But just because it was put in the defamation section, I would have thought we would have gone through a little bit of a motion trial to hear the facts before deciding it.
Yeah, I mean, as the author of that bill, do you think it's, would you say, are you mostly pleased, mostly disappointed, or are you splitting the baby like, it's a little of this and a little of that? Where are you personally as the, woman who, I'll remind people, and you say it, so I'm not ahead of you, but an actual sexual assault survivor who took her experiences, deeply painful experiences, and wrote legislation and made change, and in California and in other states now, so deeply personal for you. Are you mixed?
I would have preferred that it went to the stage where it was actually heard with the facts, because I'm all about fairness. So if there is like an actual, showing of malice, then let's see it. Let's go through and let's take it to that next stage as well, because I'm all about equity, about, seeing, because if it, like I said, if it was anti-SLAPP, it's like you would have presented it differently. You would put more evidence and more statements and more like stuff you want to present earlier on. If you thought it was going to go to a trial motion, you would put less in there and maybe hold back until you're at trial and presenting. So it was interesting how it went forward on that issue. I mean, I say some states have actually chosen to put it in their anti-SLAPP section. And what's interesting is the anti-SLAPP section protects like when someone's, claiming like defamation about something that's a First Amendment speech. And like a lot of people say, well, shouldn't that be protected under public interest? Because anti-SLAPP protects on issues of public interest. But we have found there's been recent cases, even in like New York, where a judge has found, sexual assault, sexual harassment to be a private matter. It goes back to the old time thinking of like domestic violence was within the home, marital rape was within the home. It wasn't like within the public interest. And so our intention is to correct these little deficiencies that protect other people speaking out about different issues having to do with First Amendment, but somehow leave survivors out of this protection. So we've been trying to protect along the way the different survivors, being able to come forward and, so long as it's not malicious.
Right. So it sounds like, if you wanted it to be heard, you wanted to know more. It sounds like, I think
because I feel his lawyers might have handled it differently. If he knew his pre-trial, they might have like how they presented their like showing of malice may have been different. If it was like to be,
but you're suspect of malice.
Well,
it's hard to say that because you authored the legislation, but you're also a very savvy person, and
I would have been more comfortable had it had gone to being heard in front of like a jury and make that decision, that ruling, instead of just looking at the filings on their face. I think it's a very heavy.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. When you first heard that Blake was going to road test, your bill, you had to have been more than intrigued, perhaps a bit excited, and who wouldn't be. When did that turn?
Initially, I was, because I heard about the case, but I had not been following. So I'm like, oh, this is interesting, because my first thought, well, this will bring attention to the bill and people will know that these protections exist. And so when it was like settled and it was like kind of dismissed, for lack of being able to establish sexual harassment claims, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then it was settled, like, yay, settled, gone, because the sexual harassment had gone away. So I was kind of thrilled when the settlement came about, like, okay, this is gone. I didn't know that 47.1 would still be invoked at that stage.
Right.
So I was like, uh-oh.
Now it's only 7. She's got her whole machine riding on, everything in her stable is now riding on 47.1. And
this is where we collide.
What?
And this is where we're going to collide, because I'm moving the bill forward nationally. And, I kind of would like it not to be associated with her necessarily in the spotlight, because it was a dismissed sexual harassment claim. So if I had my preference, it would be maybe some other survivors I've come across would be the ones to perhaps be the ones to go forward with the bill and highlight it and their stories.
This is so interesting, because Blake Lively has always said, I'm standing up for my fellow survivors. She always put little language in there that was like survivors of sexual assault and all survivors. I remember that in the statement, after the settlement, when she was trying to save face. And of course, the "and all survivors" was a nod to herself. But you, the author of the bill, going forward on a national front, will not be picking up the phone and asking for Blake's participation. In fact, will you have to, do you imagine a situation where you'll have to explain around her, explain around this?
Potentially, yes. I do see having to clarify around this. Yes, exactly. I mean,
She's
you have to
created
realize
more
I
work
was
for
waiting
you.
for the right. I
Has
was
she ever
waiting for the
called
judge
you?
to hear
Has
the
she ever spoken to you, especially since all of her marbles and all of her chips ended up on 47-1, your legislation coming from your personal experience? Has she still at this point, since Friday or at any point, called you, spoken to you? If you have any words with her?
No, I believe it was either
Does she know
like
who you are?
well, the day before, I know that like her attorney had texted
Texted you.
me. Yes, so I was like, and I did not reply at that time. I have not replied
New
since.
phone. Who dis?
No, there has not been any
What did they
communication.
text you? Like, hey, what's up? Can we talk? Can we catch up? Or how are you? Or
It was something, can we meet and talk? And
was it
I was not
Gottlieb?
just
Was it, who was it? Was it
Ezra.
Ezra?
Yeah,
And
I declined. I
you
did
didn't
not reply
respond to
back,
Ezra.
actually. I've been quite busy. I haven't had time to return the
And
text.
give me a sense of Ezra's stick-to-itiveness. Did he follow up again with a second text or let it go?
No, let it go.
He was just checking a box.
It's just after the first day, I think I had spoken to Megan Kelly, and then my phone just lit up. So,
I just, yeah. I'd like to end up sitting at a bar next to Ezra and Mike, in their post-mortem after a few drinks, and they get loose lips, and to hear exactly what they're thinking. Because the fact that he didn't follow up on a second text is interesting. So, yeah, I
and
mean,
going forward, it's going to be interesting how, but I will just continue on saying that I preferred that all the facts had been heard in front of a jury because this bill was in the defamation section. And I feel like you would have, pleaded differently if it was in the anti-slap section. So going forward, I will clarify that and how, like, I wish it would be a little bit different when you're presenting the facts and how it's heard. And I'll put some distance there.
yeah, I think about the law that that you wrote, and was this law designed for Blake or someone like her as the aggrieved party? No. Is the specific power dynamic in each situation missing from the bill? Not that you should have included it or didn't, but the power dynamic involved here with Blake and Baldoni, most often you have a underling of some kind in a work type situation where the big boss is, hitting on them or whatever. Blake Lively, by all means, had the upper hand on this set. She was the more powerful, the more influential. She was an executive producer as well as the star of the film. She even wrote about how I deserve a producer's credit because I did craft services, I did wardrobe, I had to fix every scene, I had to do rewrites because this guy was so incompetent. She was the 800-pound gorilla on the set. And then she turns around and says, my director put me in this type of situation. How does the power dynamic play in this?
I can tell you, Billy, when I started out, the people I had in mind for the bill were the survivors who, at the time, there's been so many where they've come forward and they don't have the funds. And it's usually someone who has a huge power imbalance, where someone is much more powerful than someone who, is just coming forward. And it has been used a lot of times. These defamation lawsuits have been weaponized to silence people, knowing that they don't have the money to defend themselves and they're kind of stuck. And the intention was to incentivize attorneys to take on these tough cases, knowing that they could recover attorney fees and the actual damages. You would think about, let's say, a single mom having to hire maybe a babysitter, someone who had to take off work and they're paid per day and they lose all these hours going to deposition after deposition. And, what can they recover? That was in my mind, those survivors. And these are the ones I've come across where they're being like financially wrecked. It's hurting, how they like function in life, and, they're losing so much money and sleep over this. Those were the survivors that were in my mind.
No kidding. Of
Especially
course.
since these, like, a lot of times to defend it are 5, 6, and 7 figures to defend. So it was kind of scary when I've seen, it's so much cheaper to be silent. And that's was my concern. Let's put some protections in there so it kind of evens out the playing field so that, if you're just bullying and you don't actually have any real malice to show, then you're going to have to be like, okay, if you just did this frivolously just to to work the judicial system, then you'll have to pay the attorney fees and damages. And that was the intention is to, if you don't have anything to show and you're just doing this to bully, maybe you'll think twice.
Well, I admire. Look, you're exactly right. I think the last thing when you drafted this legislation and you worked so hard on it that you expected was that you would face the challenge of toxic femininity would come your way. And I'm saying it, not you, but I mean, that's like the last thing you expected to be, your first obstacle. But by speaking out here, I think
we all heard the promise that so much was going to come out in court. And,
yeah, we all heard the promise.
We all heard this, and I was standing back to see if the facts will play out. The judge will make a decision. But then when it was dismissed and there wasn't anything holding up to sexual harassment, it's just like, okay, I'm going to take a step back here. I'm concerned. Grateful when it was gone. I was thinking it's done, off the radar, so that was something I was like, oh, but then when it came back again, I'm like, what's happening? Oh, it was not expected.
Yeah, she is Joan of Arc, just marching into battle, leading an army of survivors behind her. And then she notices, oh God, there's actually a cliff here. She jumps off the horse goes over, and off she goes. But I'm going to say something. What you have done to speaking out here with us, and I think people very well know what's going on here. And
I appreciate you highlighting this bill too. I really do,
yeah.
Because the intention behind it was to protect the most vulnerable population.
I'm the father of 3 girls. If something like that happened to one of them and they didn't have the courage or the backing, or and it didn't have this type of protection, well, you can sure bet that I would do it, my back. But there are people that are not able to do that. And speaking out now, I think I think everybody supports the bill. They know, what's behind it, and they know who tried to hijack it. And by bailing out when she bailed out, that's on her, not you. Thank you so much.
Wish me luck as I keep moving it forward, Billy.
Yeah, what's the next step for you?
Right now we had it introduced in 14 or 15 states this year, and I'm having a few that might go across the finish line this year, and then next year try again, because some take several years. So hopefully we'll gain a few more states before the year's end.
Well, you know what? Where Blake is bailing out on this, we'll continue with you, because the bill. So will you you and I have each other's contact information. Let's stay up to date and let's see. Okay, Blake, now that you're out, let's see where this legislation goes and the people that it is affecting, the people that need it.
The best case scenario is that now survivors know this is a protection that's there. That's the best I could say.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Victoria Burke, she's the author of 47-1, and we'll stay in touch. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Billy.
See you later. Well, I mean, I got to say, I think yesterday I said, that's it. We're not talking about Blake anymore. And then, of course, she puts in for an extension because she's going to now try to creatively account for all of her legal fees incurred on this one, sort of administrative thing. And she's going to try to claim a lot. She's going to try to tuck everything in there. She's going to try to get $30 million. We spent $30 million defending against this defamation from Justin. Oh, she should be so embarrassed. She should be so embarrassed. This is a total abomination. I mean, if you really think about it, it is an unbelievable abomination what she has done on every single front. She has totally shafted survivors. She never reached out to the woman who authored the bill. There was no authentic, real. She was never one of them. She tried to be there. She just accepted this entitlement, accepted people expected people to just fall in line. I say I'm a survivor. I say that I'm a survivor and I went through all of this and that I'm going to lead. You just fall in line, people. I'm me. You just take my word for it. No. The internet has many, problems, and social media has a lot of negative to it. But one thing is for sure. It allows people who smell a rat to be seen, heard, and stop a rat dead in its tracks.
This story just doesn't. It just keeps giving and giving and giving. On a related, while we're talking about court cases, the jump in our rundown here, Luigi Mangione, the CEO killer, he was in court this morning, and he's claiming psychiatric defense. I don't think that's a surprise, but that he was emotionally disturbed and claiming psychiatric.
What are you,
defense.
Uncle June from The Sopranos? Like, it was insanity. Just go here, Luigi. Walk around the yard in your bathrobe and your slippers like it's Greenwich Village, and sure, we'll all go down that route with you. Electric chair for that guy. See you later, buddy. Okay, great comments here this morning. Everybody's Billy is the man mostly. I got you, not always. I'm with you. Billy should have Baldoni's friend on the show that played the doctor in the movie. Sure, we'll get him. I'm working on Jamie Heath, co-defendant. I know Jamie pretty well, but I think they're just taking a second to catch their breath. Remember how Karen Reed didn't do anything for a long time? Your whole life is upended, man. We're all ready to move on to the next thing and talk to them. These people are traumatized. Blake Lively literally traumatized this formerly sensitive male feminist. You know what I mean? He is like rattled beyond belief. Leroy says, Mr. Bush is so easygoing and hope Allie isn't listening. Easygoing and knowledgeable and very talented and our friendly soul, a friendly soul. Oh, I like to listen to you, Mr. Bush. I like to listen to myself too. I'm kidding. Preach, Billy, says Joe the cat. Preach. Yeah, we preaching this morning, player. It's on. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic is Gwyneth Paltrow under fire. Now, we've talked about this before a little bit, but let's. She's going to have her. She's going to have to change her summer vacation plans. Have you seen this? Colin Firth's ex-wife, an Italian woman, Livia Gugioli. She just canceled Gwyneth Paltrow from visiting her soil to fork organic farm. It used to be called farm to table, but now we're going soil to fork. It's just, we're getting a little more detailed and focused. But apparently, Livia Gugioli has a beautiful soil to fuck farm to table. I'm not on TV anymore. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
By the way, I would love to attend as a younger single man a soil to fuck experience.
I mean, you really did say it too. It was so,
I did.
It was so honest.
I did. Anyway, soil to fork organic farm because of her recent endorsement of this Israeli luxury high-rise development called 51 Park north of Tel Aviv. So, Colin Firth's ex, Livia Gugioli, cites the alleged genocide in Gaza as the reason. She says at this point, there can be no other interpretation of Israel's actions and therefore any efforts to engage commercially with anyone in Israel or anything to Israeli is total complicity. Here she goes. Colin's ex-wife.
I just canceled Gwyneth Paltrow because what she did is completely unacceptable. And I actually have an appeal for everyone in Hollywood who, for so many years, canceled people who was speaking out about the genocide. But now, I hope that Hollywood is going to start canceling and people are going to start canceling those who actually support the genocide. She actually actively promoted the genocide. So making an ad for a luxury condo, how detached are you from reality? So you're either so detached that you need to be canceled because you live in another world, or you're actually a really, really nasty person, or you are stupid. Which three of you are Gwyneth Paltrow? And definitely you're not coming to our farm.
Canceled her from going to the farm. She said that Gwyneth Paltrow actively promoted genocide. No, she did not. She actively promoted a high-rise building 50 miles north of Tel Aviv. This is her commercial. This is her, her branding deal here with 51 Park in Herzliya, Israel, north of Tel Aviv, in a sort of a sexy kind of a wealthy aspirational community. There's Gwyneth running in Central Park as if it were Herzliya. And that's definitely Central Park. And having coffee in her beautiful, high-rise at Trump Tower, or probably somewhere else, but calling it 51 Park, which is now, I think, in the AI rendering phase. But they want people to buy these apartments and these units, and it's an Israeli builder. And this woman is saying by doing so, she's actively promoting genocide. I don't see that. She says, how detached are you from reality? You're either so detached that you need to be canceled because you live in another world, or you're actually a really, really nasty person, or a stupid. But I want to know, can there be any other options? Are those the only choices? Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow did the ad. She promoted the high rise. It's bougie, it's luxe, it's privileged. So's Gwyneth. She's aspirationally chic, man. She is great looking. She is rich. She is high class. She is successful. She's a good actress. But is it tone deaf? Or does she know exactly what she's doing? How do you know Gwyneth Paltrow doesn't oppose the Israeli government's foreign policy right now, in this moment? Can you support Israeli commerce and Israelis building big hotels and engage with it, but also oppose its government's or some of its government's particular actions? Is there room for that? What if she swore on October 7th, 2023, to never forget the rape, the pillage, and the torture of the adolescent and elderly women celebrating at a music festival that day, sitting in their villages, getting water and talking to neighbors before the assault came, and actually support the permanent, counteroffensive? Maybe she does support the guy. I don't know. I can tell you Israel is unpopular right now, and anti-Semitism is on the rise. Some might say it was brave of Gwyneth Paltrow to work with this brand. I don't think it snuck up on her. I don't think she okay, I'll take $10 million and didn't know what she's doing. She's a smart woman. She knows what she's doing. No one else is speaking up for anything Israeli. She's no doubt making a pretty penny doing it, but here's the thing. She's Jewish. And once again, not every Jewish person supports the length to which Bibi Netanyahu has gone in Gaza. But they remember what happened on that day. I'll never forget when Barry Weiss was writing for the Free Press before she got to CBS, and I've been a subscriber from day one. When she wrote, the world is with us. 95% of people are with us right now. It won't last. They're all going to bail on us. They've all bailed, and if not all, most. I'm guessing Gwyneth Paltrow would like to see a regime change in Israel. I'm guessing she's not, voting for Bibi. I don't know. But in the meantime, she's fine promoting commerce in the motherland. If she doubled down and bought one of those units, that would be badass. Now I got to say, I was on The Nerve last week, the podcast with Maureen in the Megyn Kelly universe, Maureen Callahan, and I did say with Maureen, I thought it was a little out of touch of Gwyneth. But you know what? Turns out I'm the one who's out of touch. I forgot or didn't know. I think mostly forgot that Gwyneth is Jewish. Bruce Paltrow is her father. Leave room for the possibility that it was balls out and brave of her as a Jewish. Most Jewish people are dead silent right now in Hollywood. They're not saying anything. They're letting the planes fly overhead. And by the way, there are other farm-to-table or soil-to-fork experiences out there. Livia, I think Gwyneth will be just fine. By the way, you and Brad can come see us in Maine. We have a beautiful organic farm running around us. Comment section, your thoughts on this? I'm still preaching, but I just want to know what you think. Good morning. Haven't been live in a while, still traveling, watching you. Billy, really good podcast with Maureen on The Nerve. Yeah, watched you on The Nerve. A lot of people watching The Nerve. Oh, we get good feedback on The Nerve. Here's the thing. Joe the Cat Sarnia just wants to say, soil to fuck. That's all I care about. Oh, boy. Yeah. Here's Tamater the Cultivator. Who cares if she's promoting luxury homes in Israel? The press she is getting is spreading the promo. Looks like she picked the right time. Jenny says, soil to toilet. Joy, I love when Maureen and Megan parody Meghan Farkle. So funny. Yeah, me too. We're kind of like extended family members. You're not always going to agree, though. All right. Have you been following the Tyra Banks lawsuit? She is suing Netflix. The edit made me look complicit in a cover-up is the title of the lawsuit. Tyra Banks filed a defamation suit on Saturday, a couple days ago, against Netflix over the 3-part reality series, which came out in February that I watched, called Reality Check Inside America's Next Top Model. Tyra sat for a 3.5-hour interview, and Netflix used 16 minutes of it. In an edit, she says, implies that she knowingly ignored a sexual assault on set in Milan. It was the second season of the show, and contestant Shandy Sullivan says she was blackout drunk and assaulted by a man, a bunch of the boy models that they were working with on a challenge that day. They were like, do you guys want me to come over? We'll have dinner. And like the girls were all working so much. And in these challenges, this was their chance to have a mixer with some guys. And she says that, and they were good-looking Italian guys. And Shandy says she was blackout drunk and assaulted by a man in front of the production staff. You know how this happens, like on reality shows, and people are like scrumping in the, they're in the bushes or whatever. The cameraman is there. They know about it and they're filming it. The show originally framed this moment of her being having sex in the shower as her cheating on her boyfriend, her podunk, farm boy boyfriend back in Kansas, who's like, girl's going to become a model now. And they framed it like she was cheating. She says she was blackout drunk and being taken advantage of. Here's a look at how it played out for Tyra.
Shandy's having sex in the shower with a guy. I was like, wait, what?
I was blacked out. No one did anything to stop it. And it all got filmed, all of it. Every moment of it.
I do remember her story. It's a little difficult for me to talk about production because that's not my territory.
She struggles to remember it, which I find hard to believe because how many times did she bring Shandy on her talk show? I was with Tyra. We were in the production office when we found out what was going on at the girl's house.
Tyra now claims she never knew Shandy considered the incident an assault and accuses producers of editing her interview to, quote, make it appear that Miss Banks knew she was being asked about a sexual assault and was intentionally trying to evade the topic.
Hindsight is 20/20 for all of us, and I did the best that I could at that time.
Oh, wow. So she's doubling down here. You see, Jay is her former stylist and co-judge or whatever, is saying, no, dude, you knew everything that was going on. You had Shandy on your show. And according to the suit, Tyra, was asked about the story with Shandy without being told the question was in relation to a sexual assault allegation and not a cheating storyline. She denies it, and she's doubling down with this lawsuit. The legal issue is, Tyra's not just saying Netflix gave her a villain edit. She's saying the edit made her look complicit in a sexual assault cover-up she says she never knew was being alleged. Although, again, Jay says, well, you knew that she was blackout drunk and what was going on there. Now, tangentially, Tyra claims that, she's lost business opportunities, she's lost income and mental anguish. So she wants compensation for that. I don't think that's the reason why people, aren't. It's just you've had your moment. I'm not saying we're putting you out to pasture. I'm just saying you've had your moment. You've had big syndicated shows and all those things and lots of money. And, now there's other people have, taken those. I don't think that you putting this on the radar, unless I'm wrong, I don't think that this was top of mind. If you went in for a show, pitching a show, I'm not sure they would hold it this particular part against you. I don't know. They'd have to be reminded. But the lawsuit is the lawsuit, and she is pissed off and doubling down and defending herself. Does she have a case? Yeah, I think so. The most confusing part, though, as Tyra defends herself in this moment that was so emotional back then, is the victim Shandy today is not only laughing about what happened back in the day, she's laughing hysterically about what happened back in the day with her, GBF.
Okay, so basically, we were just so excited to have any kind of interaction with anyone besides production and each other. So when they said, hey, what do you guys think about, those guys that you rode on the Vespas with when you first got here and you went to all the go-sees? What do you guys think about inviting them over for dinner and drinks? And we were like, duh. Yes, especially because the guy that drove me around was so hot and we had such a great connection, but he didn't end up showing up. It was the other guys. So I was a little disappointed at first. And then because it was also testosterone that people, dudes that we could
and
they're all super
it's an all-male college, so just imagine my struggle.
Yeah, and they were so nice. So I don't think I ate that night, and then I think I had 2 bottles of wine by myself. And then somebody's like, oh, whoa, the hot tub works. What? What are you talking about? And then they were like, oh, let's get in. And so we get in, and then I see Mercedes, and we had, what's crazy is April, Mercedes had this conversation before we got in.
Do you see what I'm talking about? I mean, she's laughing, her buddy's laughing. I don't get it. I watched this thing when she's a young girl. It killed me watching this series. I was like, no, that poor thing. She was so too thin and overall. She's recovered from that. But she's this gaunt, little girl from Kansas who was plucked out, and she's over smoking and drinking champagne and trying to starve. And on a model show, I was working at Target, and now I'm all of a sudden going to be a model. My head is spinning, and the Italian guys are around us, and I don't know what's happening. I'm just going to drink to numb because I don't even think I belong here. I got my insecurity complex, my imposter syndrome colliding with all of it. And then she gets taken advantage of, and it's desperate now. But why are you laughing about it now? This is so upsetting. I don't know how that affects Tyra's lawsuit. Tyra's taking it very seriously and doubling down and saying, I didn't know about this horrible thing. And except the person to whom it happened is laughing today. And maybe that's a sign of you can heal from something so traumatic and so awful that one day it can become laugh out loud funny. But that's a surprise to me. All right, finally, guys, Paris Hilton. I got to give Paris some props. I do. I got to do it. Paris Hilton returned to Provo Canyon, the correctional boarding school that she went to as a kid, and had a terrible impact on her. She was abused there, she alleges. Paris held a press conference just a couple days ago outside the Provo Canyon school, backing 2 families filing suits alleging medical neglect. Paris is not a party to either of these lawsuits, but her appearance follows years of advocacy work tied to that very same school. Her track record speaks for itself. The federal Stop Institutional Child Abuse Act was signed in December 24. State laws in Utah, California, Illinois, Missouri, Montana, Oregon trace back to Paris is lobbying. I'll never forget when she got pulled over she had the DUI and the whole thing, and she spent 19 days in jail. And then she came out and she did that interview with Larry King, and she's like, I've changed my life. I met these women incarcerated in prison, and I'm going to support them forever, and I'm going to build playgrounds for their children and all these things. Well, I don't think it ever ended up really happening, but she was also 20-something, 22, 23. What can you expect? She kind of just got her life back, and she was emotional, and, sometimes we have a hard time following through. She's a grown-up. She's a GAW, as they say, grown-ass woman. And Paris is calling for this school to unequivocally be shut down. Boom. Here's Paris.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. 6 years ago, I told the world what happened to me inside Provo Canyon School. I was forced into solitary confinement, physically restrained, and sexually abused, all in the name of treatment.
Our kids in Utah are still being abused, so thank you.
That's why we're here to stop it.
But yeah, they're still running the same rhetoric today in these facilities.
So horrific.
So,
such a productive day here in Provo. I'm so happy that I came. It's going to make such a difference, and just to raise awareness on what's happening. I'm really just grateful for the mayor and Senator McKell. Hopefully the next moves, and I won't stop fighting until that happens. And hopefully the next time I come back to Utah, it's us celebrating the closure of Provo.
Just sitting there on a private plane by herself, very elegant, very bougie, but very lethally effective. Pretty impressive, right? And by the way, I can't help but think of Blake Lively. Are there any survivors, people who are, actual victims, like that nice woman right there who hugged Paris Hilton for obviously her noticeable work that has had a noticeable difference, and I think she will succeed. I mean, what parent hates their kid enough right now to send them to that school today? I'd like to come forward in support of the Grace to Allow Famous People to Evolve Act. I know Jimmy Kimmel doesn't agree with me that people should be able to have Spencer Pratt is not allowed to go from reality villain and, troublemaker to concerned citizen who runs for mayor. I believe in that world. I do. I believe in people being able to evolve. Paris Hilton can be what she was, and into a responsible person using her spot and actual experiences to make life better for other people and make some changes. So, got to say it. Hats off, Paris Hilton, on that front.
Billy, I think I was just thinking. I mean, we've literally covered Paris since she became famous in Hollywood. It's kind of she's got an interesting journey, because she actually, you would have never thought 20 years ago when we started that she would have disappeared, I think, and then sort of came back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well,
remember all this started, there was the tape, the sex
She's
tape,
in the right spot now. It's not too much, she's here and there doing her things, but she's made, that private jet, that's not a charter. She owns that thing. I've seen it on the tarmac before. It's pink. It's exactly as you would expect it would be. Like it has awesome. Boas on the back of it. It's incredible. That's it for us. Tomorrow we are back here. Hot Mics will welcome an old friend who we're going to go tete-a-tete, head-to-head. We're going to come together on all kinds of stuff. We're going to have Rachel Lindsay. Rachel worked with me at Extra, of course. She was the Bachelorette back in the day. Big Rach, we call her, is in the house. Tomorrow on Hot Mics. Thanks for listening to us exclusively on TuneIn, for watching on YouTube and Facebook. Please hit subscribe, like, and let's keep partying together. Ta-ta.
Just me doing me, right?
Quite a sharp. That's insane. Billy Bush. What a pleasure.
Another compliment. There she is.